So today I'd like to talk about the effect of falling back an hour on your child's sleep as we head into the transition away from daylight savings time. I vaguely remember what it was like before I had children. When falling back meant an extra hour on the sleep on the weekends, I felt like I was getting away with something, although of course you have to pay it back about 6 months later. Certainly, once you can't sleep in anymore, and that is a side effect of having small children, things work a little bit differently. So first of all, just to clear up some of the terminology, which is confusing, daylight savings time is summertime, and it falls back to standard time, which is 1 hour later in the autumn, and then it resumes again in the spring. So let's talk about the effects of daylight savings time and falling back from it on a child's sleep. Let's take the example of a preschooler who sleeps from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. Overall, his parents are pretty happy with his sleep, although they wish he would sleep in a little bit later, especially on the weekends. So what happens when you transition to standard time and you fall back is that 8 p.m. becomes 7 a.m., and more importantly, 6 a.m. becomes 5 a.m. Now, young children, and by young children I mean usually through elementary school age, they generally wake up spontaneously on their own. They don't need an alarm clock to get them out of bed in the morning. And this is because they are more likely to have had enough sleep at night, because biologically most children are morning people for biological reasons. So essentially, when you enter standard time, your child's going to be grumpy in the evening because they're staying up later than is comfortable for them. They're not going to sleep any later in the morning, so essentially you're grumpy because your child is getting up at 5 a.m. instead of 6 a.m. I've also noticed both personally and professionally that children seem to have some sleep disruption during the night in the context of this transition. I'm not really sure why that is. This is especially pronounced in children with developmental delay and autism who may actually have a month of disrupted sleep after a transition in schedule like this. I do think that adjusting the schedule in advance can help with this. Let me show you how to do that. So in the week prior to daylight savings time, I recommend moving your child's bedtime later by 30 minutes starting 3 days prior. So this is the Wednesday before falling back to standard time. Move your child's bedtime 30 minutes later, on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday night. So not each night, but just total. So from 8 to 8:30. What this seems to do is just provides a little step for your child to get closer to standard time and seems to cushion the landing when they get there. When you move your child's bedtime, you won't notice immediately that they're getting up later in the morning, but after a few days, they accumulate a little sleep deficit, and that will occur, and things are going to go more smoothly at the transition. In the situation of children who have some degree of developmental delay or autism, children that really struggle with changes to their schedule or routine, I think it's easier to start about 6 days beforehand and move bedtime earlier by 10 minutes each night until you get to standard time. Now let's talk about teenagers as opposed to younger children. Teenagers generally struggle to fall asleep at night and especially to get up on time. And this is a function both of biology and society. Specifically, the teens have a lot of homework, they may be up late on screen time, and their school start times are too early for them to be comfortable from a physiologic standpoint. So essentially, when teenagers transition to standard time, it feels pretty good to them because all of a sudden, when they're struggling to fall asleep and especially struggling to get up, all of a sudden their biological sleep schedule is closer to their school schedule. Plus, they get an extra hour of sleep, which many of them benefit from. This is a great opportunity to work on sleep problems with your teenagers because it gives them a head start on getting to bed earlier based on the clock time and getting up earlier, again, based on the clock time. These benefits don't last too long, though, unless you continue with good sleep hygiene, which means not sleeping later than 2 hours later than the time they have to get up for school on weekends, avoiding napping, excessive caffeine intake, and avoiding bright lights, especially screens from phones, tablets, televisions, and computers from about an hour before bedtime, if possible. So I hope this has been helpful. If you want to learn more about children's sleep, you can find me at drcraigcanapari.com and on Twitter at drcanapari.